Welcome back to Cool Science Radio. I'm Lynn Ware Peak here with my co-host John Wells. We were just speaking with Mark Beckner, author of The Coder's Path to Wealth and Independence. Our next guest is Robert Selliah. He's the founder of American MedChem. Dr. Selliah has more than 18 years of experience in technology, leadership, and management in drug discovery, medicinal chemistry, and preclinical development in the U.S. and the global pharmaceutical and biotech sector. He was most recently president of medicinal chemistry at SAI MedChem in Pharma in India, where he led over a group of 200 scientists. Now, his new company, MedChem, will discover and develop small molecule-based medicines to treat children who suffer from rare or neglected diseases. And there are more of them than you'd think. MedChem scientists believe they can expedite the path to these breakthrough medicines. Robert Selliah, welcome to Cool Science Radio.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you. Now, you must remember along the way here that this is a lay talk show. In other words, we like to make science kind of break it down into things that are, bits that are understandable and accessible to the average folk. So let's go back to, we have this thing called the human genome.
Right.
And we have genes.
Right.
Explain, if you would, and I've heard some interesting explanations to explain the human genome, but I bet you can do it for us.
Right. Let me back up a little bit. I mean, I love the fact that you mentioned community, and in a way, we as a nonprofit, we want to bring this science to the community because, the thinking about pharmaceutical research is, bright scientists behind glass doors wearing white lab coats and goggles, doing their thing, but every pill that we take has come through the hands of someone like myself, because there's an active ingredient which we, drug designers, medicinal chemists, create. So with AMC, I really want to bring this to the community, invite undergraduates, even high school kids to come and participate in a small internship or something like that. So get the word out that this is very accessible stuff.
Well, that's a really great point. And,
yes.
As you know, in our schools, in our high schools and colleges, even beginning now in the elementary schools, they are trying to create science-based curriculum so that it is more accessible and it's not something that we shy away from. So that's a great idea. We'll make sure that we mention that.
It's esoteric for those who want to think about it that way, but I think it's humanity that's doing this. I mean, ancient people have been gathering plants and samples as medicines, and now we do it differently. So now to get to the genome part, what's happening is recently President Obama articulated precision medicine. That is entirely anchored on this Human Genome Project, which is revealing itself slowly to us about the secrets of diseases, right? And secrets of metabolism, secrets of how our bodies process medicine, right? So what's going to happen now is we would be able to diagnose diseases based on genetics, right? So there's going to be exact diagnosis for diseases. We're already doing this for adults, right? There are several drugs out there, beautiful drugs. If people call it a silver bullet, yes, they are, because they are clean, they have minimal side effects, and therapeutic value is huge, right? So we are arriving at that very slowly because it was a big bit of data information that scientists had to process. So now we are at the vanguard, I would say, of doing this. AMC wants to do this for children also, right?
And historically, we've had broad-based medicine. We're going to go after cancer. We're going to go after tuberculosis, or and this is for the masses. And now this is a really individualized, personalized, as we have these targeted treatments because of the genome and other diagnostic tools that are presenting themselves. Right. So this is the way of the future.
This is the way of the future, and personalized medicine is a great term. That's the term that has been used for a long time. But I'm beginning to admire the word precision medicine that President Obama in his State of the Union addressed, because I think it is gathering a lot of brains behind this idea of precision medicine. I think we should talk about it in those terms. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, I know you're going to be focusing on children, but there's a difference between children and adults. Children are not small adults.
Yes.
They're completely different in the way you approach the genetic sequencing and the treatment the targeted treatments.
Yes.
What is that difference?
The difference is this. Children's bodies is a great point, actually. Children's bodies are still developing, right? Adult bodies have developed. So if you think of with the various organs, the brain, the endocrinal system, and various things like that are still in the process of developing in children, right? So when you treat them, for example, in pediatric cancer, which falls right into a rare disease category, when you treat children with chemotherapeutic agents, which are really toxic agents, in adults, these drugs will select fast-growing cancer cells and kill them. Mm-hmm. And there is hair loss and maybe appetite loss. Maybe the gut lining gets hammered, right? Now, you take that same drug and give it to children. This is what we are doing now. The brain development is hammered because all the endocrine system of the child is getting hammered. After treatment, not only are they losing hair, there's stunted growth, fertility is gone, So these damages are happening to children, right? So to me, it is not right that we take these chemotherapeutic drugs and give it to children. Honestly, if today a drug company took a chemotherapeutic agent to FDA and said, please approve this for children's use, FDA will walk them out the door because it's not acceptable. Right, but because there is no medicine, we are using it as off-label in children. So these clinical oncologists are also struggling with these treatment modalities, right? So precision medicine is the way to go.
So interesting. So, as John called it, individualized medicine. You and President Obama are calling it precision medicine. I've also heard it called individualized medicine. To back up a bit, this has all been allowed by the mapping of the human genome, correct?
Yes, very
and
true.
that took from 1990 to 2002 or something to map the human genome. Full-time, 24/7, hundreds of scientists at the cost of like nearly $3 billion or something. Excuse me. And so talk a little bit about that mapping and how it allows precision medicine.
So that was sort of the key to the entry into medicine itself.
Like we had never really entered medicine until this point. Huh?
Yeah. So I mean, John brought up the point of how previously we would do placebo-controlled, large pivotal clinical studies with, better than placebo as the measure of goodness of a drug. Right?
Let's treat the masses.
Yes, treat the masses. But what has genomics done, what has human genome mapping has done is it has kind of opened the door to, can we go exactly to the cause of a disease, the underlying root cause? And that is where we are going to be targeting treatment for adults and for children, right? So that's a huge door opener if I want to simplify it. I'm not a geneticist, so I don't want to go into specifics of, how that all happened. But that effort, the technology, the intellect, the money was a huge door opener for pharmaceutical research. Yeah.
So is that then the difference between, we've had genetic testing around for a long time, but not genomic testing. And that's what we're doing to be able to really... I
think those terms are very similar. Genetic testing is what we call it now. A genome is a big word,
right?
An all-encompassing word. But genetic testing is when you go after diagnostics. Now what they are promoting is organization like National Organization for Rare Disorders is for testing children early on for diseases, like we do for Down syndrome and things like that. Can we test children who probably have some kind of a predisposition, a family history or something like that, to test them and treat them early? Another beautiful thing that we tend to forget, as you brought up, John, about children versus adults. Children's bodies are very resilient, right? When you hammer them with a sledgehammer of a drug called chemotherapeutic, you don't even give them a chance to recover a full life. Whereas if you go with precision medicine, and help them, sometimes the body may recover itself, right? So maybe for a 2-3 year period, we want to treat them with this precision medicine. And as their body is developing, it might we don't know that yet now because we treat them with chemotherapeutic agents and radiation and bone marrow transplant and things like that.
There was a video that I looked at last night where there were 3 vignettes. There were 3 parents that had children that were talking about situations that, how the kids were sick. And this one young man, when they did the genetic testing, and he was a baby at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they found that there was his genetics were good, but there was one protein that was being overly produced, and it was being produced in the wrong way, and that was and they could target that. You could target that, and that could specifically help him.
Yeah.
Can you correct me on that?
Yes.
I know I've got that one wrong.
So that's the technology. I mean, you described it in very, very simple terms, but if you dig a little bit deeper, that is the technology. What do any of the medicines in the pills that we take, what do? They disrupt a pathway which is corrective.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If it is overproduction of a wrong protein, perhaps we can go shut that down.
Right.
If there's an enzyme that is overly active and leading to disease process, we can go in and shut them down. So these are the mechanisms that we're talking about. I mean, in general terms, yes, there are methods to shut down proteins and bring about a cure. But specifically, that is what drug discovery and medicinal chemistry does day in and day out.
Right.
Finding these molecules to disrupt.
So the child is ill.
Yes.
There's 10 children. They all have the same symptoms.
Yes.
And then you go into the genetic testing, and you can find that one has a protein that they're overproducing and one has something else. So this is where the personalized, targeted, individualized medicine comes in, in that you're treating the specifics of that individual.
Yes, and there's a bit of breadth to that, meaning if, for example, 20 children present with a particular genetic disease, and we target that particular pathway for these 20 children, that's also personalized medicine for these children, right? So it doesn't have to be, individualized can be taken to the extreme of one person per treatment, right? But individualized is also sort of a collective because genetically they present the same disease modality, so to speak, and then you treat those 20 children. Now, for example, in adults, breast cancer 20 years ago, 10 years ago used to be considered one disease. Now it is at least 4 diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And we can genetically identify those 4 different groups and treat them with either, steroid inhibitor drugs or certain mechanistic pathways, right? So in lung cancer, it has become the same thing, right? So we are not treating cancer as one disease, or lung cancer as one disease, or breast cancer as one disease, or even prostate cancer as one disease. They're going to break down into multiple diseases within breast cancer, within pancreatic cancer, within lung cancer. This is the beauty of this new technology of diagnostics.
So how much are we seeing now, currently, precision medicine being applied? Say two parents take their child into the oncology department of Primary Children's Hospital, and they're told, we used to do it this way. There was this protocol for XYZ cancer that was the same for 20 years. It worked. It has a 98% success rate. But what we found is that we can target it a little better, and we're doing this different thing. Is that happening yet, or is it coming, in the next decade, 2 decades?
I would say it's coming because today the tools that, say, a pediatric oncologist has are protocols which are standardized by the FDA for treatment. And they are supposed to be the first-line treatment for children with cancer, which all include a selected chemotherapeutic agents. And mind you, chemotherapeutic agents are really selecting only for fast-growing cells. And cancer is defined as fast-growing. But in a children, fast-growing is almost every cell, right? So that's where it breaks down. But when we, like American MedChem and also other pharmaceutical companies, put out drugs which are very specific for pathways, then the oncologists say, look, your child has this particular genetic pathway for this pediatric cancer. We have this new medicine for it. So those new medicines have to come into the hands of clinicians.
It sounds wonderful, but how many roadblocks are there from the FDA because of the very fact that it's precision and,
Yes.
and individual? There's not a protocol for a wide spectrum of people.
Yes. I mean, this is where, even the FDA is watching the technology. You see, FDA cannot be proactive in the sense that, here is precision medicine, so we are going to do everything differently. FDA deals with when a drug sponsor brings a category of drug to them, they look at it and say, yes, this makes sense, and we are going to review it and approve it with your study results, right? So FDA is always, I look at FDA as a guard to make sure that patients get the right medicines, not snake oil, right? That's exactly what the FDA's role is. So FDA doesn't drive the technology, but they embrace the technology. So I don't call the FDA a roadblock.
Okay.
Right? It is actually, they are there to facilitate us. And what's happening now is with this technology of precision medicine, and if you can have an exact diagnosis, so the diagnostic tool and the treatment tool, if they go to the FDA at the same time, our clinical studies are going to be exact. We are not going to be doing placebo-controlled 30,000 patient studies, which is the old way of doing business. Now we are going to say, here I can select these patients with this genetic testing tool, and here I have the treatment test compound, right? So,
if you're just joining us, we are speaking with Robert Selliah, who is the founder of American MedChem that will be developing medicines for children with rare diseases. Currently, the genetic testing has a really a wide range of pricing options from $100 to $2,000. Is that because of different complexities, or is that because of where you go to have the testing?
So the trend is downwards, right? If 5 years ago genetic testing would have been $1 million cost, that price point has come down to very accessible, maybe $1,000, $300, whatever it is. There are companies that are driving this technology really to be fast, efficient, data-driven, so that it becomes accessible. Okay. Another leg in this whole study, whole technology is physicians have to be trained to use genetic data.
Right.
So that, if you talk about, I don't call it a roadblock, but that's an education. So I think these technology companies that are developing genetic tests are also responsible, I feel, to teach people how to use genetic data. Right.
So a mom and dad have a child that is sick, and they can't seem to figure out why the child is sick. Do they need to change pediatricians to find someone that is certainly open to the genetic testing side of it, or do they break away from that pediatrician and find you? Patients don't specifically come to you directly. You provide these services for these rare diseases and provide that to the general community. So they wouldn't seek you out. They need to find a pediatrician that is working with genetic testing. I'm not sure how all this works.
So let me just alter that a little bit. American MedChem is not into genetic testing. Okay. Right? We are into creating drugs. Genetic testing is done by specialists who are geneticists, and most pediatricians today have access to genetic counselors. So if you go to primary children's, there are several genetic counselors. So what's happening, the way it's going to work is if a pediatrician is presented with a difficult diagnosis, I think they'll bring a genetic counselor into that team of, treatment team. And perhaps they will initiate a gene test, a genetic test, and the genetic counselor will be able to work with the parent and the pediatrician and say, this is what we think is going on, and here's the evidence for it. And if at that time AMC has provided a drug for that, they will say, here it is. Right? But otherwise, it will stop with the diagnosis. Maybe they'll keep the child comfortable and things like that. So it is not a matter of switching from one to the other, but rather engaging the genetic counselors early on in the treatment process, I should say. Yeah.
American MedChem that you founded and you're the CEO of is a nonprofit. Why nonprofit?
Yes, that's a very good question. Let me put a general spin on it. When we bring forth children into this world, we never think of them as profit loss.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's something that drives me. But why is it when it comes to medicines, we look at children and say they are not a profitable sector because few patients get it? The same level of technology, depth, and breadth has to be applied for 500 children's disease, and it's not profitable, so we don't want to do it. I mean, it is not to blame the industry, but the industry model of, being driven by profits doesn't engage these projects, right? So it's just the model doesn't work. So if you step outside the box, in a classic business talk, if you step outside the box and say, how do we help these children? Because the need is there, the technology is there, the talent is there, the profit is not there. Do we still walk away, or do we say, forget the profits, let's create the drugs for children, right? So I go with that. Let's create the drugs for children, let the children be well, and we'll have a good night's sleep.
Very nice. So talk a little bit about the difference. You come from India, you worked, no.
I'm from Sri Lanka.
Okay, Sri Lanka, all right. But you had worked in India and led this group of scientists, and that was until what year? 2010,
yeah.
2010. So you've spent most of your professional life in India and or Sri Lanka working, and you look like you're about to answer that question.
Okay, let me answer that. I'm sorry. No, I left Sri Lanka in 1982, came to Austin, Texas, UT Austin, to get my undergraduate and PhD there. And since then, I have been in the U.S. pharmaceutical industries. I have worked in 7 different companies. My last engagement was in India for about 3.5 years. That was actually a very educational experience for me. I mean, not simply was it an exciting job, but I was running a 200 scientist operation serving nearly 25 clients in Europe, US, and Japan in drug discovery efforts. So they bring their projects to us, this outsourcing, what's called, I call it collaborative research. They bring their projects to us, and we amplify it, we modify it, and create drugs for them and hand it back to them. So it was a service job. And we were serving these 25 clients, and I thought, this is a great way to help children because this technology exists. So our model is designed somewhat after that. It's a collaborative model. If you look at universities and institutes, this is where the genetics and the biology of diseases are being studied. Children's Boston, Children's Philadelphia, Children's Cincinnati. These are cutting-edge institutes. But when they identify a potential therapeutic pathway for a disease, venture capital for a pediatric disease, let me correct, okay? Venture capital doesn't come flowing into that. Typical biotech model is, say, for obesity or for cancer, adult cancer. I mean, they have found a pathway. Venture capital will come, and they'll create a biotech. They'll elaborate the technology, have an exit pathway, either to sell the company to a big pharma or sell the technology to a big pharma. Everybody makes money. They go back and do the same thing over again. When it comes to pediatrics, these faculty members are doing cutting-edge research, but venture capital doesn't shine their light on it because it's not profitable, right? What we are going to do is go and talk to these people and say, let's collaborate. You are the specialist in biology. We are the specialist in drug design and drug discovery. And let's take together compounds into the clinic so that patients will get it. So it's a very collaborative, very interactive model. And it works again in a community setting because we are going to engage all these faculty members some ask me, are you really going to collaborate with us? I said, yes. Our first project is going to come from Numa Center for Childhood Cancer Research in Delaware. There are 6 faculty members there who are completely dedicated to pediatric cancer, and they're finding paths. Our first project will be in AML, acute myeloid leukemia for children. The prognosis today is 10% survival, and these faculty members have found an exquisite pathway that we can tackle with a small molecule drug, which will provide treatment. So
it's very exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
On your website, you state that MedChem scientists believe they can expedite the path to these breakthrough medicines. Yeah. Let's talk about the development cycle of traditional medicines and how much time they take from inception to being in the hands of the people that need it, and the development cycle of what you all would be able to do.
Yes, expedite is a critical word there because development cycles vary from types of diseases, the complexity of the biology, and things like that. So I cannot give you a number, say it's 3 years, right? It varies. And I have worked in 7 different companies. I have seen projects in ocular diseases to cancer to arthritis to immunology and various things like that. It all varies. But the thing is this, expedite in the sense that since the biology is already done at the universities, right, we already have a leg up. Right? We are not starting from zero. That zero work, the highest risk in the whole drug discovery process is biology and genetics, and that is publicly funded research in universities and institutes. Right? We tag along with them after they have finished their work. So think of drug discovery process as a 4x400 meter relay. Right? Every segment has to do its part to get the baton to the finish line. Right? This is exactly what drug discovery is. So the biology experts do the biology work. Drug design, drug discovery guys, us American MedChem and people like us in industry do our part. And then we take it to the clinic. Right? Clinic takes time because patients are now seeing the medicine. And if the drug is very, very efficacious, FDA gives what's an expedited review and process so that more patients can see it. In our cycle time, I would say in the drug discovery segment, in the middle part, I would say anywhere from 18 to 36 months is typical. Right? And the biology people have spent a lot of time doing the genetics because they ask questions, hypotheses, failures, start again. They keep doing that cycle, right? But when it comes to us, we already have an advantage to push it forward. So that's where that expedited term comes. It is not really, we don't have a technology to truncate the time. Nature drives this time, really, because the complexity of the molecule could be what takes extra time.
We're speaking with Dr. Robert Selliah. He's the founder of American MedChem. And why Salt Lake?
Why not? Right? I look at Salt Lake as, well, I came here to actually run a medicinal chemistry department for a small startup company called Prolexis. It doesn't exist anymore. But I love Salt Lake. It's beautiful. And also accessibility. I think being a collaborative organization, American MedChem would have to talk to both East and the West Coast. And this is a great place to be, you know. We have access to the West Coast, beautiful, fantastic research going on there in pediatrics, and we have access to the East Coast from here, non-stop flights to either coast. So it's convenient. It's beautiful. I think people like to come here and work. I think we'll be able to attract scientists to come here and work because we will have a group of scientists doing this work. And, you know, a lot of them who like the outdoors would come and work here and enjoy. And I'm getting phone calls from people asking, you know, they love the cause.
Right.
Not the money. We don't have stock options and things like that. But they love the cause. So they want
so more logistical and geographical than necessarily the collaborative efforts that you might have with the University of Utah, very strong biotech university and or primary children's hospital.
We are not limited.
Yeah.
I mean, we will be collaborating with the University of Utah, Huntsman Cancer Center and things like that. But we are not limited to. We will expand to working with both East and West Coast and embrace. Cincinnati is talking to me already. So,
Dr. Selliah, you look like a curious person.
Am I? I am a curious person. I think it's intriguing because life presents us with these opportunities to do good.
Yeah.
You know.
What one question would you like to see answered in the next 10 years?
Well, when there is a toolbox for pediatric physicians to comfortably say, here is a treatment I have for this child, that will be very gratifying, you know, because we don't have that now. I have sat across tables, over dinner with pediatric oncologists, and some of them have shed tears because they go back to a child that is dying, and they know they don't have the tools. If we can make a change in that, give them the tools to treat these children. We won't be seeing patients, but these oncologists, they may not even know us, but if they have the medicine in their hand and say, here is the medicine that's going to make your child better, I think we would have accomplished a lot.
That's so nice. You gave me this nice little sticker that says breaking good
Yes.
instead of breaking bad. It says, not all chemists are bad, American medchem.org. It's meds for kids. And that's your Twitter handle.
Yes.
So, Dr. Robert Selliah, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today, and best of luck
Thank you
in
very
your
much.
endeavor. Keep us informed on
Yes.
how it goes forward.
Yeah, you've got to come back and see us.
Yes, we are. If I may, we are going about fundraising. We hope to start our labs Q3 sometime. So we will come back and tell you how we are doing. Thank you,
Excellent.
John. Thank you, Lynn.
How are you fundraising? Kickstarter?
No, really not. I mean, we can do Kickstarter when we are running projects because people associate projects and they can bring a crowd together. I'm actually reaching out to people who are wealthy who I actually call it an investment, but it's philanthropic investment to come and be part of this and make a difference. All this vision can come true when people come together, right? So
Nothing like an investment in our children.
yes, indeed. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for the opportunity.
And we'll be right back.